Thank you, Eric, and the Hoover crew, and also Zugstead. I didn't see Dan anywhere, but the Zugstead Farm for having this, hosting it another year. It's amazing how fast a year goes by. So it seems like we were just here. But like Eric said, my name's Marc Yoder. I'm the director of Precision Ag at Hoover. It's kind of a funny name that just basically it just keeps everyone running in the field with the newest technology and what's available for you guys. Grew up not too far away from here, just next county over, Mifflin County. So it's always a nice part coming back here to the central part of the state. First experience hauling liquid manure. As a kid, I can remember we had a 4440. Yes, I work for a Case IH dealer, but I'll admit it. We had a 4440, and my dad filled me up, and off I went down the road, and was heading down a field lane. Plenty of speed. I think it was like a 5,000-gallon fuel tank. I'm not even sure. No duals. And what did I do? Crank it right into the field. So what happened? I went for a ride. That's what happened. So I quickly understood. Thankfully, the tractor kind of went up and came back. I jackknifed it, but thankfully, I learned pretty quickly how much weight you guys are pulling up and down the road, and it's a lot to handle, a lot to watch. Now we have brakes and duals and four-wheel drive and everything else that goes along with it. But yeah, you guys got a lot going behind you if you're injecting or running a tanker. So I'm going to have a slide or two about Hoover, then I'm going to be done with Hoover. So if you're not quite sure where Hoover Incorporated is located, there you can see Mifflin Town. We're in the center. Up north, and we have 12 stores kind of spread across the Mid-Atlantic. And then within Hoover, we have sales, parts, service, and we have our own precision ag team. So the goal of that team is to keep you guys, whether you're hauling manure, chicken litter, planting, harvest, drones, you name it, trying to keep you guys ahead of the game, and then also keeping you up and running when you have a downtime. So today I'm going to talk about Eric, I guess, asked me to talk about new technologies in manure application and fertilizer application. So today, I'm going to kind of start real basic and then build on that. A lot of you guys now are running whether it's for auto steer or just doing basic mapping, maybe doing some variable rate, doing injecting, flow meters, you name it. So I was going to spend a few slides here going through what it looks like in terms of GPS. Some of you guys are running Fendt, Deere, Case. We have those antennas up on the roof. One of those might look familiar. But I want to go through some of the technology that's built into it. You guys might hit auto steer or hit engage, and all you care about is whether it's going to steer you to the other end and back. So I just want to go through some of that. And then if you're not using auto steer, have a few things to go through, that it might be adaptable for your operation. So I could spend a lot of time going through GPS. Does anybody know how GPS works? Good. We got a few hands. Guess what? You use it every day. You probably use it to get here, right? Yep. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here going through the slides of what GPS is, what it looks like. We're using it not only in ag, but we're using it, on your smartphones and just logistics all around. So basically, you don't see them, but we have thousands of satellites circling us at any given time. Those satellites are running around roughly twice a day, anywhere from 18,000 to 22,000 feet above us, just circling. So I pulled up, and we can do this on the ag side. You can also do it with your phone, but pulled up those satellites, what it actually looks like throughout the day. And you can see this is today's date. It might be hard to see from out there. I just plugged in Mifflin Town, Greenwich Mean Time, so subtract 4 hours. You can see how many satellites we're seeing at any given time. So the goal is to have enough satellites, it's all line of sight, that we can see roughly at least 5 minimum to carry a position fix. So that gives you your green button for your auto steer. That gives you a green button for if you're doing any manure mapping, yield monitoring, you name it. So that just gives you an idea. And there's good days and bad days for satellites. Sometimes we'll have guys call in and say, hey, I just can't get a fix. I can't get my GPS to converge. There you can see it, on the, what's that say, around 4 o'clock, which actually would be midnight. Last night, it was the lowest of the entire day. Just keep in mind if you guys are running manure tanks, we usually see it more on the ejector side because you're up against the tree line, and the trees will limit your view of what you're seeing. When you're running manure tanks, pan spreading, you're going to be a little further back from your tree line. So just keep that in mind. Also, a lot of the satellites are around the equator. So the further north you get and start getting some rolling hills, you're going to have a few more issues. Been with the company for 15, 16 years, and we definitely have a lot more satellites available to us than what we did 15 years ago. There's a guy, and they're putting up satellites every day. There's a very rich billionaire by the name of Elon Musk, who's put up over 4,000 satellites alone. So we're continuing to put more and more in orbit. If you guys have any questions, please raise your hand, throw it up, throw something at me. I'll be happy to answer. Just give you an idea what it looks like, what's circling us right now. So they're above us, circling, coming up. They're all in their own orbit, and then also continuing that path so we can predict what the good days are and the bad days as far as satellites. So real quick, precision relies on these satellites. So if we're using auto steer on one of your tractors or injecting and mapping, we have those satellites, and through a lot of calculations, we're able to pinpoint where we're actually at on the Earth. Each satellite is sending out a signal. As we all have antennas on the tractors, we can receive that signal through a lot of, they call it triangulation, through a lot of decimals. We get something usable actually in the field where we can run and operate. Don't want to bore you too much, but like I said, I could go on for a couple hours on that. So why is auto steer important? Anybody using auto steer on your tractors? Great, a lot of hands. So why do we use it? We all have our own reasons. Change the radio. Less overlaps and skips. That's kind of the generic one. Yes, it helps you be more efficient in the field. If you're running through the field, and I think like you guys running injectors, if you're pulling it on the tank or you're pulling it a drag line, you need to make sure that run counts. You're not 6 inches over or 10 feet over. When you're running it at night, there's just a lot of value to running auto steer. Improve productivity. You guys that are running commercially, some of you owners, you're paying a guy, you want to be as productive as possible. Your phone's ringing because you have 3 other guys waiting for you, so get in, get out, and move as quick as possible. So productivity, efficiency, like I said, nighttime operations. Observe metrics. So you guys that are running drags, you can hit engage, turn around, and watch that flow meter, see what's happening in real time, and tell them to turn the screw up on the booster pump to get you a few more gallons. Save on fuel, see nutrients. There's just a lot of reasons. What we're seeing more and more as guys are running is stop guessing, less stress. So it's less to worry about. You can engage. If you're running at night, you know where you need to be. I always love the spring of the year. I took that picture. It's over towards like Sacramento, Halifax, that area. But I love to see planters running without markers, especially in cover crop. That lets you know the guys are relying on their auto steer. They know it works, and it makes the sprayer operators coming back in for side dressing. They can't tell where to jump in because there's not a marker. So yeah, reasons why, just keep thinking about that. Real quick on how an auto steer system works. A lot of the tractors, so like the 8,000 series, 8,000 series Deeres, the Fendt, basically anything north of 140 horse, 150 horse now is coming from factory. It's not an option anymore, it's put on it. Case, I saw some Deutz out here. So a lot of the equipment manufacturers have understood, instead of us, years ago we had to go put auto steer on and spend the time and energy and labor putting stuff on. Now it's coming from factory with the technology on. But you can see you got your steering hand pump, some hydraulic lines, a few sensors, and basically that antenna is telling the system where it's at on the earth, and it's telling those front wheels to steer left or right to match where it needs to be. A lot of you guys have seen that in real time. So if you don't have hydraulics, there's a couple different options out there. We've done a lot of putting motors on the steering wheel. You can see there's a 7000 or 7250 Magnum. We've put them on as old as you can imagine, but instead of putting the hydraulics on, you can actually put a motor on the steering wheel itself. A lot cheaper, a lot less in investment, and then if you trade the tractor, you can always move it. So some options out there if you guys are looking to add. Here's another option. So there's a big one: Topcon, Raven, Dickie John. There's several manufacturers out there that you'll hear me talk about that do things like that. All right. So in terms of auto steer when you're pan spreading, and you guys know, I'm not going to act like I do know with what it takes with your widths and head pressure, and Eric and the guys, they could tell you all about it. All I know is how to make that thing steer straight. So sometimes we do have to make that width wider or narrower depending on, if you're running more of a water-based product or hog manure, you name it. There's just a picture of what it looks like. So this is from a drag line. One of our customers, you can see how that tractor ran. So if you are dragging, you can actually, and a guy you're training, you could pull it up on software and slap his finger and say you wasted time, or we had a hose get tangled up because of something you were doing. So with the software, it's nice. We can pull it in and see exactly how that tractor ran through the field, especially if you have a rookie behind the wheel. As far as actually running in the field, does anybody know what this is a picture of? Mapping. Who said that? There you go. Good job. So yeah, that is a delta force map. Some of you guys might be running hydraulic downforce in the cab for your planter. But what this is a picture of, this is down larger farm down in Maryland. But this is his delta force map. So this is how much weight is being put down on the field itself as he's planting. And I'm pretty sure this is the grain cart. So this is the grain cart. You can see what happened from, so this would have been planted in the spring. This was the grain cart. The blue is where it wasn't getting enough down pressure. The blue is where the grain cart ran, and then the green is good, as far as the legend of hitting that perfect depth height. But this just gives you an idea as you guys are going through the field and you're running those wheel tracks, you're running out. It does affect, especially the tanks. It does affect if you're coming back in the next spring. We can see where your tanks ran, hands down, with a map like this. So as you are faring back and forth, if you can run a different path, obviously clear it with the operator. It's just going to help with compaction. Now that being said, there's a lot of technology and things that go into the flotation of these tanks, but just keep that in mind. If you are running a path nonstop all day, getting to the other end of the field, it is going to affect what we're seeing with planting depth the next spring. Hopefully he has hydraulic down pressure. If he has springs or airbags or something like that on the planter, it's really going to show up. Any questions? Going through a lot of stuff here. All right, so a lot of you guys are familiar with this, actually measuring the manure, what we're doing. So we talked about GPS, we talked about steering, and the importance of auto guidance. But when it comes to measuring the manure, something we got into years ago is the Krone flow meters. And as a result, it seems like a lot of the OEMs are producing those. They're bringing them along when you buy a new tank or you buy a new injector bar. But are many of you guys running flow meters? Yep, good. So they improve efficiency, productivity. Like I said, with GPS, you actually know what you're spreading instead of just running through the field and you hit the PTO. And I was looking for one of those charts. I've seen them in your tractors where you have your speed and then your width and your gallons. Do you guys just make that, just do your own calculations, or is there an actual chart? I couldn't find any. Anyways, so you have your speed and your width, and you're able to spit out a gallon per acre. With a meter, you can actually physically tell what you're putting out. It's outputting a gallon per minute, which equates to a gallon per acre. Gives you some options for variable rate. I have cash register. So if you're charging a guy by the cent or the dollar, you name it, on what's going through that meter, it gives you a good accurate reading on what's going through, so you can keep your record keeping and your billing a little more accurate. And then great for record keeping. We might talk about that later on with Eric, but with CAFOs and nutrient management plans, it's just a good thing to have on board for your operation. So the question we get a lot, and you're probably wondering, is why are those things so expensive? You know, a flow meter, you can easily put in $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 depending on your setup, and that's just one meter. If you have 3 or 4 different tanks, it adds up. So a lot of that is because it's an open. Let's see if I got a picture of one. It's an open bore, and some of you guys have already looked inside. So traditionally, when I talk about sprayers have a turbine inside, and corn planters do as well. But there's a turbine inside this flow meter. This is from a sprayer, Raven meter, and it works great for water. But what's going to happen if we put sand through that, or we put bale strings or zip ties? Stuff the pump doesn't chew up. It's going to get shredded, and we've seen that time and time. So the reason this meter is roughly maybe $700-800. When we go to one of these, it's a open bore inside, so there's no impeller turning. There's no mechanical piece actually turning. What we have is, let's see if I can find this picture. There we go. It's a little better. So you can see there on your right side, basically there's 2 electrodes inside and then a lot of coil, a lot of copper wrapped around. So we're able to basically get that gallon per minute through velocity. So it knows what that tube looks like empty. It knows what looks like full. I'm not going to go into the science of it. Conductive process flow. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but I know there's ions within your material. As it goes through, it's able to pick up velocity, and basically we can read gallons per minute. And then you can use that for your gallon counter, but more so if we take that and output it to, let's say, a John Deere 2630 or a Fent 1 terminal or a case monitor, Pro 1200, we can take a width, give it a speed with that gallons per acre, and then we have our gallon per minute, and then we have a true gallons per acre. So we know what we're putting down in real time. If the guy says, I want to do 8,000 over here, we can do it. I want to do 10,000 over here. It just gives us a lot of options. You can see there's one put on a fuel tank. I don't know if there's any here today on the tank. Some of the bars have them. But yeah, when you get a chance, take a look at one, see how things are mounted up. But for the most part, you can meter it, and then if you can actually take it a step further, when we start talking about injectors, you can actually start controlling it. So a lot of you guys are familiar with this pinch valve. You can actually start metering it. We know how much is coming out based on our rate. It's a sprayer, more or less. We know how much is coming out from our flow meter. And then it says, hey, you're putting out too much, so that pinch valve goes ahead and shuts down. As you speed up, slow down, it's separate from what you're used to, hitting a PTO switch and dumping manure out. So if you haven't looked into actual rate control, yeah, grab one of these guys or myself, and we can kind of go through the logistics, what that would look like for your operation. You can see the pinch valve. There's one actually installed. It takes an extra remote if you have one. One thing I did want to mention, Krone's kind of the industry standard. There's another one out there, Siemens, and there's a few other ones that are a little cheaper. Krone makes one called a mag meter, a 4100. So what they do is they actually pot it. And for flow meters, the worst part is moisture. So you get moisture inside, either inside the tube or coming down from the outside, and you get water into one of those things. With copper, water and copper, they're gonna mix and make a mess. So what the mag meters are they're specifically potted with gel to kind of seal out that that moisture as you're running. You can leave them sit outside and not worry about it. Okay, so this is a map of a drag line actually run through the field. You can see manure injection. There's 300 acres. Just to give you an idea what it looks like in software. So if you are actually spreading, you can bring that in and look at it after the fact. There's the injection amounts. So green was a heavier rate. My legend's a little messed up, but you can see we can record that in real time what's happening. There's my speed, so you can see if you're actually injecting or just doing a pan bar, you can see what it looks like. There's my swath width, elevation. The best part is whenever maps come in or guys are trying to figure out what happened with a planter skip or a sprayer or something messed up, we can pull it into software and see exactly what happened. So just keep that in mind as you guys are running. So there's elevation. Productivity, I can see how productive. I can look at my fuel. I can look at a lot of different things in real time, keeping track of how I can be more efficient, productive. All right, so switching to dry manure application. So we covered liquid, just jumping into dry. So for the last couple years, I shouldn't say the last couple years, probably the last 10, 15 years, putting scales on board has been going up. So we used to sell a lot of spreaders. Some of my competitors here, they did the same thing where you sell spreaders and there was no technology that went on it. You might have had a rate chart. But here of late, guys understood, hey, it is worth putting those scales, putting a Digistar scale head, something on board, so I know exactly how much I'm putting down. There's no guessing. Things change. You know, if you start on the outside of a pile with pen pack manure, it's going to be different by the time you get into the inside because of moisture. So scales is something that I look at it like, air conditioning on a car. It used to be an option way back. Now you can't even buy one without having air condition. So scales is kind of that same point. And also it's not just for the big guys. It's for, smaller 5, 8 ton, not just the big 15, 18 ton machines. So here you can see a few pictures. The top one is I think that's a Hydro Ram. You can see the scale load cell. Looks just like a TMR mixer load cell or, any other load cell you have there on the farm. The one on the right there, the white one, that's a Lanco, and then a Knight there on the bottom. But the nice thing is a lot of the manufacturers are now, with the larger ones, have a subframe. You can see that, I think that's Artex there on the bottom, where there's a subframe so we can actually mount those load cells that you see above easily underneath. Back in the day, we had to put load spindles on and different things, and it was just a mess. So it's nice that the manufacturers are coming out as an OEM and making that subframe where it's easy to service and add them if needed. Basic setup of a rate control system for a spreader. So you can do just a basic scale head telling you what's coming off. So if I put in 10 tons, I can see how much came off roughly by my acres, and I have a tonnage or pounds per acre. This is the next step up. This is something that Raven came out with 20 plus years ago, and some of these units actually have it set up where you have a encoder on the apron on the web, and that encoder is just like a flow meter, what I was talking about earlier. It's counting revolutions of the web, so we know how fast that web's turning. And then there's also a control valve you can see highlighted in yellow. There's a control valve that we're able to open the control valve and slam it shut based on how much is coming out. So in the cab, we can type in, 400 pounds to the acre or 1.4 ton, you name it, and it's able to calculate that as you're going through the field. It's a picture of the Lanco that's actually hooked up down here to the Optum. I said I was only going to have 2 slides. Sorry, 3 slides on Hoover. But a lot of this has progressed here in the last few years, where we have that encoder, we have that control valve, and we have our speed, so we know how much we're putting down. So Raven came out with something, Topcon came out with something as well, but it's taking it to a whole nother level, and you can see that module, that's a Raven module, a rate control module. We're putting that on, and it's the same thing we're using on sprayers. As that machine, as that spreader goes through the field, it knows how much is coming off. It's called dynamic spreading. It knows how much is coming off, so I don't have to do a catch test. I don't have to spread a load, do a catch test, figure out how much came out, do some rough math. The scales is telling us how much it's coming off. So as I get into a wetter manure or drier manure, it's able to change on the fly based on what's coming off. So it's a different way of spreading, and this is what guys are asking for, and it's across the industry. And the OEMs have picked up on it too. So this is something that's coming. We don't have to retrofit. It's coming from the OEMs, and it's an option. So if you want to know more about that, I can definitely tell you. And it's for lime. Here's a customer. This is Northern York County. I was riding along with him one day. You can see we were doing a pan test, and you could see we were purposely loading the dry lime where it got rained on, or a wet lime where it was rained on, and the dry lime, and you could see the RPMs almost double because it was trying to achieve that rate. So whenever it was coming off, you could see exactly what was happening. It's pretty neat. Here's what it looks like coming from a map. So this is another one of our customers, just a basic spread application map. Basalt, I don't know a lot about it, but they were putting some serious rate down, 46,000 to the acre. And it just gives you all those metrics that you need for CAFOs and for your customers if needed. Same thing, you can see what it looks like. So if you're doing dry, this is from a Topcon monitor, and I think an ag leader on a case. So we're mixing and matching. And I will say, I have a few slides on this. Manufacturers are playing a little nicer than they were a few years ago. So that's been great. So you can now take a Fent and hook it to a Lanco, or a Lanco to a Deere, or case to a Hydroram. So it's something called ISO, and a lot of you guys are familiar with that, where there's an ISO plug on the back to what you can see there on the bottom. And you can plug in, and the monitor pops up and looks the same no matter what tractor is pulling it. So there we have I think, not sure what model that is, but you got the idea. There's Topcon has an option, and Raven has an option for the spreaders. Those are the main 2 suppliers. I'm running a little tight on time, but one thing I did want to mention, this is more the fertilizer side, but I just want to get your mind going where things are going to progress. We're not quite there, on the liquid side, but it's getting there. So section control, that's something that's been around for years with planters and sprayers, anything application. And this is a G5, a new liter box, and you can see we're now at the point where we can actually do section control on spinners. So the technology is getting there, and guys are trying to be more accurate, be more diligent, what they're putting down, where they're putting down, and save on inputs. So just to give you an idea what it looks like, I don't know if I have a good picture. Yeah, so basically on the back, that the spreaders, you can see there on the top, they are moving. So the spreader is staying constant, and then the spinners are actually moving from left to right, forward, reverse, and that's what actually gives us the section control. So it's able to feather if we're in an area that's already been sprayed or spread or not. And then lastly, as far as drones, I have this slide in because I heard last week, I didn't even know this is possible. There's guys that are spreading liquid chicken manure. So there's some guys online doing that. So that's one thing with being, in the technology business. We started dealing some with the drones this past year, and I thought that was interesting where they're spraying liquid chicken manure. I don't think we're going to be spraying liquid hog manure anytime soon until we get some bigger batteries, but just to give you an idea where we're at as far as getting into that technology space. Yeah, any questions? I went through a lot of stuff. Thank goodness we have a fan as tall as me over there running. Any questions? Okay, I'll be around. Nate Trout's over here. It's our salesman from our Mifflintown store. So I'll be around here for the rest of the day. Thank you.